Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Needs Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we're going week to week, introducing you all to something new to watch, along with some recommendations that tie into our current watch. In this episode, we will be continuing to talk about Welcome to Derry and many other things I have to talk to Darren about. Even though I put those convenient show notes in there, maybe that's a negative side of it. Don't just jump straight to the content. You miss all the great recommendations and a lot of fun stuff off the top. Some news sometimes that I throw in there. So do listen to the top of the episode before you jump to your specific subsection. But we will be talking about Welcome to Derry and a bunch of other things. I definitely want to talk to you, Darren, about this week's episode of The Chair Company. I did want to get your opinion of it. Was this most recent episode of The Chair Company, first of all, curious to know where your wife is at this point, but I was really surprised a little bit that this show really felt like at this point that it wasn't necessarily going to be about anything really substantial. But this revelation here in this episode that he is in crisis, and it's not like people aren't aware of it. It's like they're treating him with kid gloves because this is obviously something that he's had episodes of this in the past. So what did you think about this pivot in the show, like making the perspective of, we've been so much in his perspective, and now suddenly having the perspective explicitly of his daughter, but just of his family in general. And then this flashback that gives you all this additional context too. Maybe the reason he's so crazy and people just allow him to be is because of who knows what kind of mental breakdown he had in the past.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it was teased earlier on in the series that he had this like tourism business or four-wheel drive, some kind of tour that he wanted to create, which was a spectacular disaster and just didn't work at all. And we see a little bit of that, and it's probably not because of the idea, it's just because of him.
His execution, not the best. He almost kills this guy because he doesn't think he's getting enough of a reaction from him.
Just because he doesn't get a smile from him. It's like, mate, some people don't smile too easily. Yeah, I watched this show and I just laugh, and me and my partner just look at each other and go, where is this coming from? Some of all the characters that just come in for like a split second are talking just super weird, or they're just this really oddball that character you'd find in a sketch show. Yeah, I love this show. It's a must watch as soon as it comes out. Yeah.
Do you know why your wife is such a huge fan of his? Is there has she ever explained it to you, or is it just her sense of humor?
Look, I'm a little bit scared to ask her just because there's might be some things that I don't want to find out, but I will ask her and I'll find out for you and maybe report back next episode. But she just enjoys this kind of offbeat dude, which is quite interesting because the guy, I think, would turn a lot of people off. And I think a lot of people would see him and just go, nah. Not interested in being with this character for longer than a scene. But yeah, I think it's great. It's fascinating. I just laugh. Yeah, you just got to laugh. Where's he going to go?
Right. Do you think the show is going to pivot more into that? I guess it's too early. I mean, maybe not. We're probably halfway. So we're 4 in, so we're pretty deep into this. So I do wonder if this is going to go further into the direction of making this into a deeper conspiracy. And maybe that's the other question I have for you. At this moment, do you think this is a conspiracy at all? Or do you think this is just like, these are just a bunch of losers that are doing this investigation because they have nothing else to do and they just want to have someone else to hang out with? What do you think?
Well, he's really laid down his conspiracy theory to his daughter now. He's gone all the way. And
she's
told us
openly
at the same
concerned.
She is very concerned. She loves him and she supports him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could go one of two ways, couldn't it? Everything he says could be true, but I think it's probably going to be more interesting that it's going to break apart his world and nothing of what he's going into is going to be true. And maybe he's actually having another psychotic break.
I don't know if you have a particular standout highlight comic moment, but I have to tell you that the guy he's hired now to watch his house, who he's talking to him on the phone, and he's just like, I'm not watching porn, I'm just listening to it, and all the pop-ups are coming up. They keep popping up on my phone.
Can't relate to that at all. I don't know anything about this.
I've never been on a web page like that has pop-ups that you can't. You got to bookmark the good ones. So you got to remember where those are. Without the pop-ups. Did you get a chance to see the premiere episode of I Love LA? I Love LA?
I saw that premiere came out yesterday, but I haven't got a chance to watch it because my wife was keen. She's a big fan of Girls, and I said, it looks like could be similar to Girls. So she's like, don't watch it without me. So yeah, we'll probably catch that sometime in the next couple of days.
Oh, great. We'll save the conversation for then. I'll just preview it here by very much like Girls, by the way. This is a bit of an acquired taste. There were parts of the episode that I found really grating, but then I was very curious by the end of the episode to see where this goes from this point on. So, I mean, I think I was probably more a fan of Girls at first, and then over time I became less interested in it. But this one was a mixed offering right from the top, but very curious to see how interested you are in it and what your wife thinks about it as well.
And who's the lead girl in it? Because she's the creator as well.
Rachel Sennett, yeah, she was like in Shiva Baby, which is available on HBO Max, by the way, if anyone's never seen that. She was in Bottoms with Ayo Edebiri.
Yep,
and
saw that. Yep.
Yeah, so she
was also one of the best things, or maybe the only good thing in that what was that? The Weekend and Lily Rose Depp show.
Oh my God, yes, yeah.
I think she was the only person I remember from that show positively.
I like what's her name too.
The Idol. That's right.
Remember her name? Yeah. What a train wreck. Have you seen the movie he made this year?
Look, I've avoided everything from The Weekend after watching that series. I had to watch the whole thing for some reason because it was just, as you say, such a train wreck. And yeah, I haven't touched anything The Weekend. Can't listen to his music anymore since then.
Oh wow, it's poisoned the well completely. Wow.
Absolutely.
The whatever the thing, Come Around Sundown or whatever the hell that new album is called. He did know that movie as well, with Jenna Ortega, by the way, in it. And what that is a really, I don't know where it's streaming right now, but you should check it out because it's not a whole TV series. It's only like an hour and a half or so. But what an utter train wreck, but a fascinating one, especially following up on The Idol. Like in my review on Letterboxd, I was like, he learned nothing from his experience of The Idol. But I do recommend it as just like a true curio of one of the most famous musicians in the world, in a way, maybe accidentally sabotaging their career. But it's a truly fascinating disaster. Looks great though.
Amazing.
Looks great.
Okay. Yeah, well, like The Idol looked great as well. And I mean, I liked what was going. No, I didn't like what was going on. I like the idea of it.
Yes. Same.
I like
same.
the idea of having a muse and being creative but what fascinating train wreck is the perfect way to describe that. I had to keep watching it every week.
Absolutely.
I had to keep watching.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I had a really mixed experience with that show, by the way. Also, I was an apologist. I think I actually reviewed here on the podcast the first 4 episodes or so, was following it along because we really weren't covering anything else at the time. And I was an apologist for it at first. As bad as parts of it were, I did find what it was trying to do fascinating. But by the time I got to the end, I'm like, this thing has no idea of what it's trying to say or what it's trying to do. It was just a total fiasco by the end. But I was there in it. I was in there for the first half of it or so. And it looked great. Looked great. And some of the music was good too, by the way.
It did. Yeah. The music was, I mean, it was the guy from Euphoria, Sam Levinson, I think, that did it with The Weekend. I don't know who's more responsible for that. But yeah, I mean, I really like parts of Euphoria are fantastic. Same, yeah. So I was looking forward to it. But I wonder what Sam Levinson is doing next.
They're doing Euphoria season 3. It's in production, so it's coming very soon.
Wow. I bet they have to back the money truck up to get Sydney Sweeney to get back on.
All of them, right? All of them. A fortune I can't even imagine how much money they're spending on that season. Especially because they're all like 5 years older now. Are they still going to pretend they're in high school? They're all like 30. All right. First thing I wanted to talk about, Darren, we got a message from one of our listeners, Paul. Longtime listener, Paul, thank you so much for your support. He's also my QA guy. Like, I've posted some bad episodes with some bad audio. He immediately lets me know. So thank you again, Paul, for all your hard work and for being there from the very start. But he pointed out the fact very diligently that this is about 1 year. We're almost exactly a year into Darren being a co-host here, one of the co-hosts here on the podcast. And I just wanted to say, you know what? I've never taken the time to say thank you, Darren, for these conversations.
Well, that's very kind of you, Victor, and thanks, Paul. I've really enjoyed having a chat to you each week. And yeah, hopefully I have been adding something interesting
Absolutely,
or funny or something to talk about, because yeah, I really enjoyed having chats about movies and TV. And it's fantastic that anybody wants to listen to us.
My wife is constantly amazed. Second little news here item at the top. We just talked about House of Dynamite last week, and it was in the news because first the White House kind of spoke out and said, no, that's not exactly how it is. And the creators of the film pushed back a little bit, saying, well, that kind of is how it is, especially with this like hitting a bullet with a bullet and the statistics on that. So there was a little, agree to disagree type tit for tat. But more importantly, the very next day after that, both Trump and Putin announced that they were going to start doing live nuclear testing again, everybody. I guess no one has learned anything from seeing this movie at all.
Isn't that incredible? You can see some people watching that movie and going, yes, that's exactly what we need to do, is
Exactly.
beef up our weapons so that we have more than one bullet to hit this bullet. We've got multiple. Yeah, incredible. Where are they going to do it? Are we going to bomb the South?
That is a great question. I mean, are they going to do this in the Midwest? I mean, like I should say the desert again. I mean, people live there now, so I'm not sure where they're going to plan to do this, but who knows? Or you're right, out at sea perhaps is another way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bikini Atoll was popular way back then, which is not too far from Australia. Yeah, so I don't know if that's with China building all their little islands in the South China Sea and making islands out of reef. Yeah, I don't think you can go anywhere near there.
You might have some really spectacular sunsets, though. All right, next little bit of news was that Welcome to Derry premiered last week, and HBO was very, sometimes they don't announce all the ratings information right away, but this had 5.7 million views in its first 3 days. This was the third biggest launch for an HBO series, behind only House of the Dragon and The Last of Us. So it's a very good company. My question to you, Darren, is do you think, given what you see in these first two episodes, and by the way, I'm going to spoil things a little bit here by announcing that I like this second episode significantly better than I like the first one. I don't know if I could have liked it less, to be honest, but I have positive things to say here. But I do wonder if the audience will continue to show up. So do you have any kind of initial feeling about that?
I'm looking, it's 8 episodes long, and this episode was over an hour long, which I was a little bit apprehensive sitting down to start watching it. But I agree, this episode was a lot better than the first one, and I actually really enjoyed it. And a lot of things are coming. Maybe this could have been the first episode, because it focused on a few things that you can really grab hold of that are going to continue throughout the series.
You know what? I didn't get to dig into, I think I brought it up when I re-listened to our conversation. I never dug into it, but I was saying I felt like that episode that we saw last week had been maybe like a late maybe someone at HBO or someone in the showrunners thought they needed like maybe a more grab the audience by the collar first episode to have that kind of, and I just felt like it had been tampered with. And the thing specifically I wanted to call out that I didn't bring up initially was the scenes on the army base when he's in the back of the car and Dick Halloran is driving the Jeep, that it's obviously CGI, like the background, like you could see the halo around their heads with like a bad CGI job. The actual army base with you see them driving through this incredible set, must be an actual location where maybe they have actual planes that they can roll around because it looked very authentic. But then all those conversations in the car looked completely artificial. And I'm like, that was all shot on green screen, probably like months afterwards, like composited into the episode. And I just felt like a lot of stuff in that episode was like exactly like you're mentioning, that maybe this was going to be the pilot, because it's just the whole idea that by the end of this episode, it seems like they are like now slowly building up that losers club. Didn't they do that quickly in episode 1? Now we're doing it again in episode 2. So it seemed like a lot of this, I have a feeling that you might be right. That's why this episode's so long, possibly. This was probably the original pilot. And then they wanted to jazz things up with maybe a more, attention grabbing opening. So they went with that arguably not great CGI heavy car sequence in the first episode. And then the shock of the deaths at the end. And then they added some scenes to the second episode to like do a transition where the girl had already witnessed this death, these murders in the at the theater. It just feels like there's this couple episodes have been cobbled together, but I thought this one it flowed much better. Characters were much more interesting. The motivations made a lot more sense to me. And I'm going to jump ahead, but we'll break it down a little more detail in a moment. But that final moment where they find that car and there's those bodies inside of it, there was a real sense of dread that like something bad is coming. And I thought it just worked so much better than that first episode.
Yep, agree with everything. And just the fact that the Hanlin family,
yeah,
I mean, obviously he needed to come to the town first before his wife and son, but the entry of the wife really brought this energy and this fresh perspective on Derry that I was really interested in. And it felt like that was the start of the story to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're on the same page there. And I'm pretty sure that, like you touched on already, that this may very well have been the pilot, or a version of this script was the pilot, and they, refactor things late in the production. But hopefully this gets a little more confident footing. I feel much better about it now than I did after the first episode.
As you say, you couldn't feel much worse.
Exactly.
Even the performances of the kids seemed a lot
absolutely.
more even and a lot more, you could just go with them more rather than those kids that got murdered last week. A lot of those performances were all over the place and you just couldn't latch onto them.
That's a big digression. We got a lot of my commentary in there already, but there's a few more things I wanted to circle back to before we go fully into the Derry conversation. One more thing about Derry is that apparently HBO has now, I guess because of those big premiere numbers, they have confidently renewed it for the full 3-season arc, that one that goes backwards to 1908. So it looks like they are, I mean, I guess they figure even if they lose some of the audience that they're going to invest in this 3-season cycle. So it'll be interesting to see. It'd be very interesting if they can get another season in before next Halloween, because then if they could do something around Halloween every year, that would probably be pretty good marketing for them. Okay, a couple of things. For Halloween, my wife and I watched Weapons. I only meant to play her the first scene of Weapons, but she got sucked into it immediately because it's such a great opening sequence to that film. And the reason I want to bring it up is because I think your wife had the same experience. But not only that, we had another friend who just watched it recently, also a big horror fan, and had the same exact reaction as my wife, saying that she loved the movie until the ending. They're like, what? And my other friend, who's a big horror fan, also had the same reaction just this past weekend. And I was a little surprised because I had thought that in the movie theater, that ending worked like gangbusters. People were like pumping their fists in the air. It was so exciting. All that is to say that I thought the ending worked really well, but maybe part of that was the audience reactions. First of all, did you have the same experience with your wife? And second of all, can you think of another example of something that like worked much better in a theater than worked later at home?
That is an interesting question. Yes, I watched it at home with my wife, and she, again, like your wife, was sucked into the story. The way that it's portrayed is so good, the way it's laid out with breadcrumbs as you follow all the different characters. And by the end, she did say it was stupid. It was dumb. She wasn't on board with the ending, and she wasn't on board with more of the supernatural elements as a solution to the mystery. Now, what's better in the cinema than at home? Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Saving Private Ryan, which you had to see in a cinema. I think I saw it a couple of times. The first time it was just that visceral horror. And the second time I really tried to break it down to see how he managed to lay out the film like that. And I don't think I've ever seen it at home. And I don't think it's the type of movie that you really could see at home.
I've seen it at home and it still works, but I do agree that first time of that, like literally like my heart pounding in my chest during that opening sequence, you only get that experience in the theater. I was trying to think of when I was going to ask you this question myself, what would be a good example even from this year? F1 definitely was an incredible experience in the theater, but I got to tell you, I watched that at home and I got really into it also. So I think it works pretty well at home. By the way, that's about to premiere. I think in the next few weeks will premiere on Apple TV Plus if anybody hasn't seen it yet. I did have another thought about this very year, and I think you've seen this as well. The Naked Gun movie was really funny. I mean, I laughed so many times, and I don't often laugh that out loud that much when I'm watching a comedy. I laughed so many times seeing this, and a lot of that had to do with seeing it in the theater because that movie's just throwing 20 jokes a minute at you. And, if a handful of people in the theater find any one of those jokes funny, it just gets rolling from one joke to another. I mean, my ribs were hurting by the end of that movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that movie too. I saw it with my wife and my youngest child, who wasn't too young to see it. She was okay with it. And you'd laugh at different jokes. She was
Yep.
laughing at way different jokes than what I was laughing at. And there was a couple, and then it's a really strange film because when you leave the cinema, you can't remember any of the jokes.
I just
and you
always
just
remember
wondered what you laughed at.
the whole sequence when they like reanimate the snowman. And then they have to kill the snowman, and all of that, just how it just keeps escalating one on top of the other and just gets more and more ridiculous. And then my favorite part of that whole thing, that huge montage where they've had like hundreds of experiences and had supernatural elements and everything else, and they're driving back home and they're like, wow, what a great weekend. This is it was just a weekend together, their first weekend together.
How do you so good that? So have you seen that are you watching that at home now, or are you going to leave it in the cinema?
I think I'll watch it again to see if if the comedy works for me as well. I got to tell you, the other thing that made me laugh so hard, and the audience laughed so hard at this, and it's such a bizarre joke, was the TiVo joke about don't connect to the internet because you're going to lose all your Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes. I never even owned a TiVo, and it's such a specific joke that you only know if you've owned a TiVo, and they like don't care that this is a joke for just a niche of the audience. And somehow it worked. Like the theater just laughed, and I'm sure most of those people have no idea what they're talking about. But his commitment to that joke, he was so angry that she connected the TiVo to the internet.
Now, no one owns physical media. It's all on subscription. So if you lose your subscription, you lose all the movies you've saved or whatever. But you have that favorite show that you've kept from years and years. And there's no way that you want people to to lose it. And it reminds me of when you have VHSs that you rip the tab out so no one will record over it. But then someone always gets the sticky tape and puts it over to record some dumb show. And it's just, it's the worst thing in the world.
Man, VHS. We're really speaking to our age group there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we just lost half our listeners.
Oh, I have so many things here that I put on this list of things to discuss this week. One of them is the Scream 7 trailer premiered. So if anybody hasn't seen it, check it out. What'd you think of this trailer?
I mean, I watched it, and it's Neve Campbell and it's Courtney Cox, and I didn't pick anyone else, but I assume a lot of the old gang is coming back, which fine, okay. I don't know if that's going to get me in the cinema, but yeah, Scream. I mean, yeah. Have
you liked the new series, the rebooted series?
I think I watched a bit of the last one, but not enough. I think it was actually quite interesting the way that it started off. But I think one of my daughters was watching it, and I was like, yeah, just tuned in and tuned out. But I did watch the original again with my 13-year-old, and she loved it. And it was a great rewatch as well.
I feel like they're rebooting it yet again with this most recent one. So, because it seems like it'd be much more heavily involved with the original cast rather than the new refresh cast.
I'm not sure if it's a rumor or not, but I heard the original killers were coming back. So I'm not sure how they're going to do that.
Well, supposedly, there's a rumor that Matthew Lillard is not dead because he's never officially died, like been announced at any point that he died. So maybe he obviously was stabbed. Spoilers for Scream 1, but he may have survived that and then could still be around. But the Skeet Ulrich character, who has been around, by the way, he came back as a ghost, basically, not a ghost, but as a mental projection, I guess, of his psychotic daughter in one of the most recent films. And a couple of movies I've seen, actually 3 films I want to shout out. One was I saw Begonia, the new Yorgos Lanthimos film. This is one of my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos films. How are you on him in general, Darren?
I liked Poor Things. My wife loved Poor Things. She was all about it, and she went to see it a second time with me. It was fine. It was good film. The favorite kind of lost me. I really liked The Killing of a Sacred Deer because it was just so awful, and I really enjoyed just that awful premise of it. Is just really got me thinking. And The Lobster was a fun movie as well. So yeah, mostly positive on old Yorgos.
I'm very mixed on him. I like my favorite of his is The Lobster. I think that's one interesting thing about him is that I think most people have very varying opinions on his films. The Kinds of Kindness, his most recent film, which is like an anthology, I thought was terrible. And I thought Poor Things also was a little overpraised. Also, I'd read the book. I think the book is much better than the film. It's very different also. So, and I'm not even saying that he should have been a straight adaptation of the book. I don't think that's not Yorgos material, the version of the book that I was more interested in seeing. But I thought the film was okay. I thought it was a little overpraised and a little. I started getting tired of his technique, and I think that it's such a corrective Begonia because it's shot in a very naturalistic way, and it's very much like Eddington. By the way, Ari Aster, who obviously did Eddington, actually is the originator of Begonia. Brought the script to the writer who also wrote The Menu, was also one of the writers on Succession. And then they brought in, I think Ari Aster maybe wanted to direct at some point, but then they brought in Yorgos instead. And Yorgos changed the script a little bit more, as he's wont to do. But I really like the fact that he grounds this thing. It goes crazy. It's like a very over-the-top, intriguing premise, which I'm not going to break down now because maybe I'll have a full conversation about it once you get a chance to see it. But I really liked it. It worked really well for me. And it's an interesting pairing to Eddington, by the way, and maybe even like One Battle After Another. There's a bunch of films this year that kind of touch on similar themes. And one last thing I'll bring up is that it is a very faithful adaptation of that South Korean film I mentioned, Save the Green Planet. So you probably, and I think it's better than Save the Green Planet, by the way. So you maybe not want to, last week I was like, hey, if you want to do some homework, you guys can watch it. It's pretty easy to watch. I would say that the plot points are so similar. It really is a spoiler to watch that one versus this one. It's not like a loose adaptation. Like a lot of the things that happen, all the twists are identical. So I would say watch this one. It's the better version. And then eventually, when you've forgotten this one a little bit, go back and check out the original South Korean. I also saw Frankenstein, which we will be discussing next week because it's premiering on Netflix. And I had very mixed opinions about this film as well. Can't wait to discuss it with you because there are things, this is very much like a Yorgos film as well. There are things that worked really well, things that didn't work well at all. And I'm very curious to see how this lands for you. What is your relationship with Del Toro?
I love him. A bit mixed on some of his movies, but I just love the character.
I completely agree. I wish I liked his films as much as I like hearing him talk about his films.
Yeah, but I think, what's the film? Pan's Labyrinth is
fantastic.
I mean, it's probably one of my top 5 movies of all time.
Yeah.
I've watched that movie so many times and I love it to death. I also love The Devil's Backbone, which I think the movie just preceding that one. And what else? The Shape of Water. I thought it was a great film. Nothing over the top. I can't believe it won a Best
Picture
Oscar. And the other one, which is terrible, which has Bradley Cooper in it, and it's
Nightmare
about
Alley.
3 hours long. Nightmare Alley. Yeah, fascinating, but I didn't like it at all. But I still wanted to watch the whole thing.
I have very similar to you. Pan's Labyrinth was on my decade list. It was one of my favorite films of the decade. It's decade. Definitely the high point for me in all of his films. I like Hellboy. I liked Hellboy 2 even more than Hellboy. But all those films are like, I liked it. Like Shape of Water, I liked it. And once again, just like Shape of Water, I loved parts of Shape of Water. And then the stuff, big chunks of the movie don't really work for me. And Nightmare Alley, identical to what you're saying. I love the performances. I love the design. I loved some of the individual scenes and like the tension between those characters and the con game that they're playing. And like, there's a lot of interesting subtext in there, but the film itself is just so like well designed, but just like blah, it didn't really work for me. And a lot of films leave me a little cold. They're maybe a little too designed. And maybe that's what I like, that as technically, beautiful and designed as all the decisions are in the Pan's Labyrinth film, it doesn't feel impersonal in the way that like Crimson Peak, another film that just doesn't work for me at all. Again, incredible design work, but I'm just like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Frankenstein. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I'm just hope it's more, Pan's Labyrinth than Nightmare Alley.
It really is a mix of all his films up until this point. There's a little bit of Nightmare Alley in there actually, but very little. It's more like there's a lot of the Frankenstein, basically the Frankenstein metaphor has been in so many of his films before. And there's a lot of that. And there's also like the tragic romance and that you've seen in some of his other films as well. So it's a mix of things. And I'm very curious to get your take on it. And like I mentioned, we'll be discussing it in our next week when we regroup. Before then, though, Darren, we have on the podcast, we will be covering Pluribus. Are you looking forward to this one? This is the new Apple TV sci-fi thriller, possibly.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Film.
The answer is yes.
Series, I should say.
The answer is yes. It's Vince Gilligan.
Yes. Right.
You're burying the lead.
Right.
It's Vince Gilligan from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which are both 5-star TV series. Almost every season is just must watch. And Better Call Saul was so good because it introduced Rhea Seehorn,
of course,
to the world. I've never seen her in anything else, and she was absolute star of the show. I thought almost over Bob Odenkirk and the other guy from Spinal Tap. I forgot his name, but he was excellent in that Better Call Saul series.
Chuck. Yeah, I can't remember
yes,
the actor's name now.
Michael McKean.
McKean, yes.
Michael
exactly.
McKean.
Yeah.
So good. I have nightmares about his character. It's just,
wow.
I still do. So yeah, very keen to see Pluribus. Have no idea what it's about. And to see Rhea Seehorn as the actual star is going to be fascinating. Yeah.
Interesting, by the way, that a little information about that series that's been leaked out. Now they have a full trailer now. And the basic premise of the show is that I think from what they're showing there, that they have come up with a drug, but that this information has come from the far reaches of space. They've gotten like some kind of space message that has allowed them to manufacture a drug. And this drug basically makes everybody at peace and harmony. And everybody on Earth now has basically no more depression, no more anger, no more fights. Everything is ideal, except for Rhea Seehorn's character, who she is still miserable for some reason, the most miserable person in the world and the only remaining miserable person in the world. And of course, I guess that from the little bit that they show of the plot in the story, she is like a celebrity. Like they literally are flying her to Washington, D.C. to figure out why is she different and can they fix her? Can they make her happy too? Of course, she doesn't want that to happen. She wants to keep being the person she is. And I think that what he's trying to ask in this series, which is already renewed for a second season, by the way, there's a really interesting New York Times article that basically saying that this is a huge show. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars. They got a 2-season renewal up front from Apple, and that Gilligan doesn't care basically if this is a hit or not. I'm sure he doesn't not want it to be a hit, but the New York Times is basically saying when you're looking at all these streamers cost cutting and just the way the marketplace is changing and how the audience is shifting, we are never going to see a show like this big again in our lifetimes. So it could be like a true, like an end of an era in a way. So I'm really excited about this series. And I love these kind of, Black Mirror-esque or Twilight Zone-esque type ruminations on, what would happen if all of a sudden you could have everything you wanted, and, what do you lose and what do you sacrifice in being able to do that? And I found it very interesting in that same article that Gilligan was talking about. He wrote this while he was working on Breaking Bad. He wrote it for Rhea Seehorn years ago, and that he himself has struggled. He started as a very young writer, wrote a few episodes of The X-Files, and then became like the showrunner for The X-Files, became an executive producer, started writing, directing. From that, he gets Breaking Bad, then he gets Better Call Saul. He wins all these awards, but somehow, with all the success he had, he always felt like there was always like something in him that kept him from enjoying the things that were happening around him. So it's a way for him to like exercise that feeling that even when you have everything, sometimes you just don't feel satisfied.
Well, that all bodes well for this series, but geez, he's hit everything out of the park. Is he gonna? Yep. Can you be so successful on and on? We will see. I just love the way that he balances extreme kind of horror and drama with hilarious comedy, almost in the same scenes. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And also love the sun-drenched trailer. It looks like he's shot in is he from New Mexico or Arizona or something?
Shot in the same area as basically as originally. It would think it was supposed to be in Texas, but they couldn't shoot in Texas for some reason. So they shot again in New Mexico, I think, wherever they shot Breaking Bad. And he mentioned in that same article how they very intentionally, it's funny that he says this, they very intentionally did not use the same locations they used before because they didn't want it to feel too similar to how it was in the, the previous series. But like you said, I don't know, when I look at those trailers, that looks very familiar to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Could be in the same universe. All right. So we will also get, or I should say, when we regroup, I'll get your opinion of those first 2 episodes. We get 2 episodes this week, by the way, and that premieres Thursday night into Friday for anybody out there who's curious in that usual Friday premiere slot for Apple TV. So check it out. I also, we're not going to have time to talk about this, but I'll have to put it in a separate episode. But speaking of Apple TV, a whole bunch of that stuff is premiering recently. Slow Horses wrapped up. There's a new series, a spy series from, or I guess private detective series from the same writer, McCarran, of the Slow Horses, which I thought was very good, the premiere 2 episodes. So anyway, way too much to talk about right now. There's a lot of really exciting stuff out there. I will have to publish that all in a separate episode.
Yeah, and Mr. Scorsese's there waiting for me to watch as well.
Oh my God. I thank you so much for bringing that up. That was one of my recommendations I wanted to throw in here as well. 5 hours long. It is not enough time, and it's so thorough. It starts like with his birth to the current moment, and still it's a 5 hours, and it feels like he's barely touching the surface, and it is excellent. It's really a fantastic way to spend. I mean, it just flies by. If you're a Scorsese fan, these 5 hours are going to feel like 2.5 hours, and you're going to feel like that's it. I need a 12-hour version of this series, and he deserves it, by the way.
Incredible.
But yeah, absolutely check it
really
out.
Looking forward to
Fantastic. Definitely check it out. All right. So, Darren, we get to Derry episode 2. This is The Thing in the Dark is what it's called. So a few interesting things here, like just to circle back for where we left off last week. The focus has shifted from this, what we assumed we were going to get in episode 1, like the rug pull here that you think, oh, we're going to see same basic story structure as the It film, where you have the Losers Club being created. Instead, they all get massacred. Practically all of them get massacred. But the survivors of that attack do seem like they are now starting to form yet another losers group, I should say. We have Ronnie, who is the daughter of the projectionist, I think, at the movie theater, who has this whole thing being pinned on him as part of the storyline here. Will is the Hanlin son, who the Hanlins have really become the focus of the story at this particular moment. And of course, this boy will eventually grow up to be the father of Mike Hanlin, who of course is in the It novel and in the It movies as well, in 28 years later. And of course, Will is now becoming friends with Rich, who is bullied as well. He's short and he's Cuban. And of course, this is 1962. Cuban Missile Crisis is looming. So I'm sure they will find a reason to beat up poor little Rich. But it seems like Rich is also going to become part of this Losers Club. And then we have Lily. What'd you think about Lily? We mentioned that we didn't really think this actress didn't really relate to her character. What'd you think about her performance this week?
She's the main girl, isn't she?
Yeah.
She was much better, I thought. Yeah. I do like the Cuban boy. Was he in the hallway when talking?
Yes.
Yeah, he was great character. And it's an interesting show because you're trying to work out who are the characters that are going to go forward and create this losers club. So you really have to try to concentrate to go, should I care about this one? Is this one going to survive now? Is this one going to be further to the plot, or is it just going to be another nightmarish kill? So
I think that is another misstep in the way they structured that pilot episode, for that very reason. Like, I feel the same way. I'm like, should I care about this character, or are they going to die soon? Right? And I don't know if that's a good thing to be thinking while you're watching the show.
Yeah, it's really not. I don't like it. It makes me a bit unnerved. But yeah, I thought Lily's performance was a bit better. Yes.
I agree. And that could also be because of the amount of time, perhaps, to shoot. Once again, I think if that pilot episode was actually shot after the fact, maybe there was enough time to, spend enough time with the actors to make all those scenes work. Because I didn't think anybody really gave a really strong performance last week, to be honest. My other question to you is, what did you think of Marge? This is the character that we both agreed was our favorite character last week. What do you think about her? But what do you think, more importantly, there's something very interesting in her dynamic here where she's trying to ingratiate herself with the popular girls, the Heathers or the mean girls in the group. And there's one particular one, the Queen Bee, who everyone kind of defers to. But you see her like laughing at Marge, but then when Marge goes a little over the top or gets a little too much attention, she immediately smacks her down. What do you think they're setting up with that dynamic?
I think it's a great dynamic. Mean Girls is a great film. And the Mean Girls, the musical film, is one of my favorites. My daughter showed me that and I was like, oh, I'm not watching another Mean Girls. She showed it. I was like, that's even better than the original. So yeah, I'm always fascinated in this dynamic between teenage girls. I've got a 13-year-old and she comes home and says the most wildest things about her friends or what she's done to her friends or what her friends have done to her. By the next day, it's all over. They're back to square one. So yeah, always interested in the way that teenage girls treat each other. I don't think there's anything crueler. So yeah, I can really see Marge just straddling that knife on being too dorky for them and just not cool enough. She's never going to be cool enough for this group, and I think she's just hanging on. And the fact that she is into or has sympathy for the Lily character, she can't help herself.
Right. Yeah, and it's once again, she's one of the most interesting characters here, and it's very relatable. We all probably had an experience like that when we were younger, where you're turning your back on a set of friends, and trying to ingratiate yourself with the more popular kids, or at least just the more easily social direction to go in, and like that push and pull of both directions. But I feel like Marge is probably going to be, she could potentially create problems as well from playing both sides. But eventually, I think she's going to be part of this losers group. By the way, Lily does the most despicable thing. I mean, we sympathize with her because she's basically being bullied by these cops, but she throws Hank Grogan, Ronnie's father, under the bus as the perpetrator of the massacre at the movie theater.
I think Ronnie's putting in a good performance, and poor Lily, she had nowhere else to go. I mean, that chief had it in for the father, and he was going to lock him up by any means possible. So yeah, poor Lily, she didn't have anything else to say. And yeah, it's a shame that her and Ronnie are broken up. But of course, the Losers Club is going to get back together soon.
Yeah, and if you saw the trailers for next week, it looks like they are working together now. Lily and Ronnie will be working together to try to exonerate the father, I would assume. So the Hanlin family has really become the focus. And I don't know if this is going to be continuing throughout the rest of the season, but I wanted to mention a few things here that I thought, first of all, Charlotte Hanlin, this actress, Taylor Page, she's so terrific, by the way, and I don't see her in too many things, but have you ever seen Zola? Have you ever seen the movie Zola?
I've not, no.
This is a terrific movie called Zola. I think it's pretty easy to stream, and it is based on a Twitter stream that supposedly was true, but I think is just, someone writing fiction.
Yep.
But it was about this girl who worked in a strip club and was seduced by another stripper played by Riley Keough and in the movie, and that she basically sex traffics her out of the state. And it is funny and crazy. It's a really wild movie. But Taylor Page is so incredible in this role because she's the tweeter as well in the film. So she has to play the role, the tough girl stripper in public. And then you see her like in front of this mirror, like in this liminal space where it's her interior monologue. The dichotomy between those two things is so fascinating. And she's able to be a different person in that inner monologue and then bring that to the performance on the outside. Anyway, she's a great performer. And I'm glad that I get to see her in something because she hasn't done that much work since that, at least that I've seen.
Yeah, I think she was the highlight of this episode for me. And she immediately came in. You knew her character. She was killing it. I haven't seen her in anything, but she's in The Toxic Avenger, which came out.
Oh, yes, that's right. I heard that too. And I do plan, that's in my watch list. So I'll probably catch up on that.
Yeah.
What did you think that they're trying to set up here? I thought it was really interesting the fact that even when she goes into that deli or that butcher shop, wherever she is, and that this perhaps more progressive owner of the shop is, oh no, I wasn't surprised to see you because of the race. Like he basically seems to be like stereotypically progressive, especially for this period of time. And yet you see her reacting to these kids getting punched outside. And even the shop owner, this kindly shop owner, is just like, boys will be boys. And I wonder what that is trying to set up. I guess we've seen this in the It films in general and all these adaptations, that there's always this undercurrent of these, like, it's almost like this sub theme of all of these, that there's always these thug, bully, older, slightly older kids, which not only is like oftentimes directly manipulated by Pennywise. So maybe that's part of what's being set up here. What did you think?
Yeah, I guess it's of the time. There's always this like racial divide in these kinds of towns. I mean, she almost couldn't walk the street without getting stared at,
right,
which must be a terrible feeling. And the fact that she is still strong enough to go and break up this fight when she's putting herself in danger.
Yeah, these boys are not intimidated by her. If it was probably some older white woman, they probably would all run away, but they just eye her down.
Yeah, absolutely, it's pretty frightening. And I think the way that Stephen King, he's always got these, as you say, he's always got these thugs. Is this a product of the fear of Pennywise being in this town for generations, that people turn a blind eye to bad things happening because they don't want bad things happening to them? So if they're in a little moment of peace, they're quite happy to ignore it when it's affecting someone else.
And of course, another really big thing that's happening here. Oh, a couple big things. Let's talk about what's happening at the Air Force Base. First of all, almost forgot to bring this up, but very interesting to see that, what's Will's father's name here? Leroy Hanlin, that the pilot who's been brought in, that turns out the reason they want him really is because he had this damage, that his amygdala is damaged and he has no fear because of that. And that it turns out that the beating he got last week wasn't by a bunch of white supremacists. It was actually by his captain himself, because they wanted to prove out whether this is true or not. Because this is an interesting thing I hadn't thought about, like even when they introduced that last week, that, think about it, Pennywise preys on people's fears. That's what he does. He like looks into your mind. He finds your greatest fear, even if it's silly to someone else. It's your personal greatest fear, and he uses that to terrify you, to manipulate you. And imagine you literally have no sense of fear. So, like, is this like a superpower against Pennywise? I mean, I guess that's what we're going to discover over the course of this show.
Yeah, I thought this was a little bit hokey. As you say, it could definitely be a superpower, but I don't think it was developed enough. I don't think just because they tried to beat him up once in his dorm, I don't think that actually illustrates what they were saying, or not enough for me anyway. And also the whole concept that they know about Pennywise and they know about this fear, I think that's quite interesting. So how far back does that information go, and how do they come to that information? And also, what are they thinking of trying to harness this power for themselves, and how are they going to go about doing that? So yeah, there's something there for sure.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by it, all as clunky as it is. I mean, honestly, it's just to show how clunky maybe that first episode was, that until they brought up specifically that we wanted to test whether you really had no sense of fear, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that even happened last week.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me, because I forgot completely. But as silly as it seemed in the moment, that is actually an interesting twist, right? Because if they have tried to approach this center of evil or something, and have had people chicken out because of this, or go mad because of their fear, then, well, let's see what this guy does. This guy has no sense of fear at all.
Well, apparently so. I mean, he's got some grisly scars. Do we know how he got those scars? Do we know? Do we get a flashback to see what happened?
Maybe, yeah. I think it was.
Yeah.
I assume it was a plane. I mean, this is me just writing this in my head, but I assume it's a plane crash, perhaps, that actually caused some kind of brain trauma that caused the damage to his amygdala.
And how's that lack of fear gonna affect his family unit as well? I mean,
it seems to not affect it, which is interesting. That it's like it only affects, like his sense of fear. It would be funny when the family's like terrified by something in the future, and he's just totally relaxed. Like, come on, guys, get over it.
And also his relationship with his wife. I mean, I don't know how healthy the relationship is, but sometimes there's a bit of fear of both sides. And how would you interact with your wife if you have no kind of fear of how she's going to react? I don't know.
Okay, another reason I liked this episode a lot better than last week is that unlike the ridiculous car sequence, I know it worked for you somewhat, but it didn't work for me at all. It just came out of nowhere. I gotta say the two set pieces here were really effective because once again, it's grounded in character, right? You have Ronnie who has this guilt over killing her mother in childbirth, having this horrifying sequence where the bed comes to life. The makers of this film find like vagina dentata to be very terrifying, by the way, and umbilical cords.
Umbilical cords, yeah.
Are we going to see one in every episode? I don't know how that's going to work, but and then of course we have Lily with her father, Pickle Rick. I'll just call him Pickle Rick from now on. That in his, that she runs into him in the grocery store in the worst way possible. But I thought both of these sequences were not only pretty effective, they were character based, which I thought was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, maybe that's why you didn't get into that cast scene in the last episode, because we didn't even know who this kid was at all. Any of his motivations, he just wanted to leave Derry.
And he sucks on a pacifier, so then he gets attacked by like some baby demon. I'm like, what is going on here? At least here, we have this direct correlation. Obviously, Lily haunted by the death of her dad, and then Ronnie having this guilt over the death of her mom. That makes sense to me. And by the way, very in keeping with the It books, again, that it's very much preying on your particular psychology, right?
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. I still don't find them scary.
No, they're not scary.
But,
True.
Which I think is a problem.
Yes.
But yeah, interesting. I think I like Pickle Rick more. I mean, that's just a shocking image, old Pickle Rick, especially when the other parts of the jars fall and one's got a hand and one's got a heart, and oh man, that's full on.
But I got to tell you, too much CGI. And I do recommend, if people have not seen this, you have to see the behind the scenes, like the little featurette at the end, the pickled father sequence. The head in the jar is an actual practical effect, and it's like flesh colored, and the eyes move, and it is so disgusting. And then on the ground, like the girl's holding the practical effect in her hands, and you see the skull sliding off of the other pieces, like they're all attached and they can spin independently of each other. And it's so fleshy and gross. You guys had a practical effect and you layered so much CGI on top of it. I can't even tell it's a practical effect anymore. You guys got to chill out. That thing in her hand is so much more disgusting than the CGI version. It's a practical thing she's interacting with, but there's so much layered CGI on top of it. It looks fully CGI.
Couldn't tell.
Right.
Wouldn't have even known. Yeah. But that's a good tip that there's behind the scenes after the episode. I only found that out in maybe the last couple of scenes of Task, that they have this whole little featurette, which was actually quite interesting.
Yes.
So that's a good tip that I'll keep watching through the credits to see those, but yeah, as you say, I mean, the expression on the face in the jar and all this stuff they layered on top, if they didn't do that and it was just a real life face, maybe with a couple of blinking eye or something, that's way more frightening to me.
Yeah. Once again, recommend everybody check that out. Literally in the featurette, when she sees the face in the jar, it just is in there, like flesh colored, not all green, like pickled looking. And the eye opens while she's looking at it. It's like a puppeted open, and it's so disturbing. And that the fact that someone looked at that and goes, I know what we'll do. We'll make it all green and we'll do this. I'm like, come on, we'll make tentacles. I'm like, what is going on, people? Like, you had it already. Like, let's not put too much sauce on this thing. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more.
Oh, for sure. Can you imagine the artists that worked so hard on those practical models and then just to get it all written over by a computer?
That is the sad part about it. If you actually watch that, you see him, like the artist, with the thing in his hands, and the slices will actually move independently, but they're still attached. So they just slide and wobble. And he shows you, like, he puts his fingers against the lip and you see how the lip moves and everything. It is so gross. And to your point, exactly, could you imagine the amount of time this guy put into making that practical effect? And then they're like, we'll just gotta goop CGI all over it. I'm like, what are you doing, man? I don't know. Show the work, man. Show it. Yeah, we need a balance, people, a balance. And of course, one more important fact here back on that army base is that Dick Halloran, of course, is there because of his shine, that he has some feelings. He has his shining that is allowing him to find these evil artifacts. He goes into town at night, he breaks curfew, and they almost get in trouble. They think they're all going to get in trouble, these other black airmen that are with him. But of course, he gets special permissions, but he seems to be pushing it a little bit. But he's like, nope, we're getting close. And then, yeah, we had that final moment where they dig up this old car, which I'm sure will probably correlate to that maybe we'll even see flashbacks to 28 years earlier when the last time the creature was around. They have found this. And there was something really foreboding about them pulling that car out and, the mud's pouring out and the people inside the car. Maybe that's what's represented in the car trip family demons in that first episode, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah,
So
that's what I thought too.
That might be who they are. Once again, would be creepier if we had some reference to them before then, but maybe it'll circle back to it. And of course, the Native Americans, by the way, becoming more and more prevalent here, watching from a distance, knowing that they're digging into something that they shouldn't be. And so all of this is very intriguing here at the very end of the episode.
That's really cool. I didn't get that he's got the shining at all. So we got the legend of Scatman Crothers is coming through, which I just love. And they're not going to call it the shining, are they?
No, well, maybe I doubt they would call it. Yeah. I mean, he might mention that because when Scatman Crothers in The Shining, or in the book as well, he says that it's used right in the Kubrick film as well, that I was able to see things that other people couldn't see. My grandmother called it the shine. And that's where the shining comes from. So he already has that terminology. Will they actually say it over the course of the series? I have a feeling this show is definitely going to say it.
Yeah, they're going to make it plain and obvious. Well, that's cool. I really enjoy that. That's wicked. Yeah. And we know he's going to survive too.
Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah. No mystery there.
And I agree with you. The spooky car getting winched out of the hole and the bodies falling out. Fantastic. As that episode finished, I was like, Victor's going to like this one. He's not going to bag it like the last one. We're going to actually have to talk about
it. Yeah. I enjoy this one much better. And I'm still not 100% on board that there's enough here to make a series out of, but I am, way more confident at this moment than I was before. Okay, a few things to mention here at the end. First of all, I wanted to say that just because this is a prequel, I was kind of down on prequels last week, being like, do we really need a prequel? I wrote up a little list of, prequels aren't always bad. And I'm going to run some by you that will segue into something else I want to discuss as well. And one other thing to bring up. So we got a little feedback. Not that many people responded, but the ones of you that did respond, Darren, everybody wants us in conjunction with this. If we run out of other things to talk about, they want us to do the Watchmen rewatch.
Awesome. Yep. I've been thinking about it, and that's what I want to see as well. And I ticked it on my HBO Max list last night.
We do not have time to watch it next week to discuss it, and we probably won't have time to discuss it the week after that. However, we will start rewatching it, and eventually we will circle back to it. I think it's only 7 episodes, maybe 8. So we can probably, later in the Derry conversation, especially if we have episodes that have a little less plot in them, maybe we'll do 2 episodes at a time. And we'll see when we have those gaps. I think there are some gaps in this calendar that we can plug that into. But I wanted to bring up prequels that work because it segues into something else as well. First of all, of course, the obvious choice, Godfather 2, not truly a prequel, by the way. Parts of it a prequel, parts of it a sequel, but definitely prequel elements there. So you can't forget that one. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, actually a prequel to the other Westerns in that cycle. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, another prequel. X-Men First Class, Darren. How are you on X-Men First Class? Fan?
I thought that was one of the better ones. Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed. Fury Road and Furiosa, prequels.
Definitely not one of the better Mad Max films, but still very interesting to watch. Absolutely.
Not Fury Road? Not a good one?
Fury Road, I mean, that's just an all-time movie.
But that's a prequel too. That's why I brought it up, as well. Darren, you know what else is a prequel? Andor. Andor's a prequel.
It's a great prequel. Not enough people watching Andor. I was talking to a good mate the other day, a massive Star Wars fan. I've known him for years and years. Tried watching Andor, couldn't get into it. I was like, mate, give it another go.
Yeah, you got to put in the reps on that one for sure. All right. Those are all non-horror. There's some sci-fi in there a little bit. But you know what? There's some good horror prequels too. Alien Romulus, Prometheus, Alien Earth, all prequels. Quiet Place Day One. It's a pretty good prequel. We just talked about this one last week as a recommendation. Pearl is a prequel and the best of those films.
Love Pearl.
Darren, I never asked you about this one. What do you think about The First Omen from last year?
The First Omen. I think I started watching it, but I didn't continue it, but it was shaping up really well.
Oh, you didn't finish it. It's really good. I gave that was on probably my top 30 last year. And my only ding on that is all the stuff that is like winking directly at like, ooh, look, it's an Omen movie. You literally cut those scenes out and you just say, hey, it's in that Omen universe. We don't have to be too specific about stuff. You cut out those few things that connected to it's a really good movie. So anyway, The Omen, First Omen, I should say, really good. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is a prequel. And Darren, last of all, here's where I wanted to get to in this conversation. Prey and Killer of Killers is a prequel.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
And we will be watching, I don't know if it's a prequel or a sequel or both. We will be watching the new Predator Badlands also this week. Are you planning to see it this week, Darren?
Okay, so I'm just realizing it's coming out this week. So yes, it's at the top of my list to go and see it at the cinema. So if Thursday is the day, then I'm going to go at some stage this weekend.
So that is why I was saying that we probably will not get to Watchmen. If we didn't get to it this week, we probably can't get to it next week because I want to talk to you about Frankenstein. I want to talk to you about the new Predator film. And then, of course, we still got to at least spend a little bit of time talking about Derry. So that'll like eat up most of the time.
Well, after the desert, we finally see an oasis. So yeah,
there we go. I know, right? And by the way, Netflix, we had the House of Dynamite last week. And then they had, oh my God, did you see Ballad of a Small Player this week?
I have not seen it. I've heard mixed things about it.
It looks great. It is terrible and really disappointing because I actually like both of Berger's last two films, Conclave and All Quiet on the Western Front. And yeah, this was it's like a perfume commercial. It looks incredible, but you know where the story is going after 15 minutes. And then it drags on for another hour and change. And yeah, it didn't really work for me. But anyway, it was theoretically a big deal. And of course, now we have Frankenstein this week. And, we have the Knives Out film coming out in December. But in between there, almost every week, they have something that could be in awards conversation or just like a big release. And it's just incredible. Like it's every week they have a big premiere. So all of that's going to be plugging up our coverage here for the rest of the year.
Yep, that's good news. Plenty to talk about.
Exactly.
Pluribus.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Are you and Sona doing recaps of Pluribus?
We are, yes. So we will be doing recaps on Fridays. I believe we expect to have those episodes on Friday afternoons, hopefully, if all goes to plan.
Good. It'll be good to listen to a companion piece while watching that show.
Yeah, I guess I buried the lead on that one. We will definitely be covering it here on the podcast in a separate episode. But I'm sure Darren will be discussing it as well. So we'll have lots to talk about. And if you guys have time on that agenda of things to watch, do start rewatching Watchmen because we'll be discussing it here as well.
Great. That sounds like a plan.
All right, Darren. Thanks again for the conversation.
Cheers, Victor. Thanks so much.